our website was like top 3 in the United States for We Buy Houses. Let's say we bring in 10 properties. We're probably wholesaling right now 5 of those, taking down the other 5, and within those 5, maybe a couple are flips. 1 of those is a rental today. And the rest are stuff we sell on wraps for cash flow.
Welcome back to another episode of the Austin Zaback Show. Today we have Jared Vidales on the show. Jared's the guy, we only met a couple of times, but he's been in the real estate industry forever, I feel like, and done just a ton of stuff in the industry, a ton of transactions in the industry, probably maybe more than me, I don't know. Well, I'm excited to dive into it and learn a little bit more. But man, I just appreciate you being on the show.
Dude, absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know you, and even to catch me up to speed, you're a big wholesaler. I feel like you're a flipper. You own a bunch of property. I mean, you kind of are all over the place in the investment world. So talk to me a little bit about what your life looks like today. Like, what are you working on?
Man, it's everything residential housing. So kind of like you mentioned, we have a off-market acquisition arm where we bring in deals. We bring in deals from our off-market strategies, on-market strategies. We get deals from wholesalers, agents. Anyways, we have this gigantic funnel of residential homes that are coming through the pipeline. And every time we get something under contract, we figure out what the highest and best use is for that specific property. But we always look at a property as, hey, does this fit into the rental portfolio? And there's a specific buy box because we don't sell anything, right?
I love that.
So, we flip, we hold a bunch of rentals, and then anything that's junk that we just don't want to take the risk on, or we're not long-term on like that specific submarket, we'll wholesale those out to somebody else who wants to do the work on it.
Yeah.
That's on like the existing SFR stuff. We're also doing new development projects. We just broke ground on 16 homes out in Mesa. That'll be a rental project. Build it, stabilize it, hold on to that one long-term, similar to the existing single-family stuff. And then we also have 70 homes down in Arcadia that will be breaking ground in about 2 months on, and a couple other parcels that are still in zoning or entitlements, whatever the stage is. So everything housing. And we do tend to get creative within single-family as well. We'll buy sub-2s, we'll sell on seller finance, on wraps and stuff like that. It's really, we look at our holdings as, pretty holistic. We keep yield strong, but at the same time, we keep exposure just through holding on to the single family stuff.
Wow. I love that, man. There's so much to unpack there. I want to dive into everything. I want to dive into your development and how you got into that and really the entire thing. How many properties are you guys holding right now?
So we have about 55 rentals that we own right now. On the flip, stuff under construction, it's a little bit slow just because we're getting through kind of our 2022 pipeline. So we're probably have 12 open 12 open construction jobs right now. So not a lot, but we just started buying about 45 days ago.
That's awesome.
So picked up about 8 in the last 2 weeks that we'll take down, and some are rentals, some are flips, some will sell on wraps to, a wrap buyer.
Sure. Yeah. The 55 rentals that you have, do you have a partner on those, or how did you get into buying and holding?
Yeah. So no partners, just my partner and I on those. It was kind of interesting because it was kind of accidental. So, take a step back and we're looking at 2020, right when COVID just freaking melted the world down. We had about 35 or 40 deals in escrow, that pretty much all of them were just wholesaling, all in Arizona. And, right when COVID hit, we got retraded on pretty much every property that we had, and not just once, but as kind of COVID progressed and there's a lot of market uncertainty, we got retraded probably 3 or 4 different times, had to fall out, resold some to some different investors. And I'm like, guys, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, we're like, what we are selling these, like, after all was said and done, all of our retrade prices, I'm like, we're 50% below replacement cost. Like, all right, guys. So what I did was I printed out a massive Excel sheet. I put the price that we needed to retrade the seller at, and I gave those to all the acquisition guys and said, take your properties, get this number. If you can't get it, sell it, cut it loose. But if we get it, then we're just going to take them down. So I think we took down 15 of those homes. That was about 15 out of 30, 35 that we're able to get price reductions on. And we're like, we're going to go in, we're going to do all the renovations, and we're going to sell them. And if we can't sell them, then we'll just refinance and hold on to them, whatever. Like, we're in at a good basis. So I did that. And the market just freaking went just vertical. So we sold off all the junk, like all the South Phoenix flips and like Old Town Mesa stuff. We kept all like the good, like Chandler Gilbert stucco tiles. And, after we refinanced with permanent debt, we're like, dude, these are freaking great, right? Plus, like, I must have been living under a rock because I never heard of, this whole cost segregation stuff back then. And I'm like, I could write down 80 grand on one property, and I have no cash in this thing, and, I'm getting cash flow. I'm like, shit. So I'm like, okay, I get the cash flow, I get the real estate exposure, and then I get all these write-offs. Right. So I'm like, this is fantastic. Let's just do more of this. And, we kind of went into that, 2022 is obviously, it was impossible to lose money, but you take down property and then, values would go up 80, 90 grand. So like when you refinance, you're pulling out all your cash, and we're essentially getting free exposure and free tax write-offs at that point. So that's how we picked up, 50 of them, 55 of them in the last like 2.5 years. And that's kind of how we stumbled across that whole thing. You got to be very selective now, obviously, because the debt kind of limits what pencils, but that's how we got into the single family rental game.
The debt definitely limits it now, right? And are you still finding properties now that work for the rental portfolio to add to that, or are you holding off a little in that regard?
Not necessarily. I mean, there'll be onesie twosies, but it's definitely not a time to really scale that. And it really just depends on how you look at it, right? Because in theory, when rates are high and sentiment's low, you should be going in and buying assets, right? And the inverse is also true. So anything that I could break even on the cash flow, if it's in a good area, I'll typically hold on to it. But, if I'm sucking wind on it, I'll just flip out of it or wholesale it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I was talking to Doug Hopkins. He was on the show, and he's like, dude, he's a couple different people, actually. I think Doug Hopkins, Steve Valentine was another one. And they were like, dude, like I'll lose a couple $100 on a rental. I mean, if it's a good rental in a phenomenal location where there's like, it's a no-brainer type of deal where there's always going to be a tenant in that location, like it's a desirable location. They're like, dude, I'll lose $200 a month because, I mean, assuming they have a business that cash flows a bunch of money, right? Obviously, because they're like long term, that'll flip flop, right?
Exactly, and you're exactly right. You could go into junky areas and get a little bit of higher yield where you're cash flowing, but I'm not a big fan of junky locations just because, I mean, there's just not a lot of qualified, renters. There's 1,000 applications, but none of them qualify. So I'm more of Class A locations, better property that I know will stay occupied.
Yeah. So talk to me about was wholesaling the first thing that you ever got into? Like when you got into real estate? I guess let's go back in time a little bit. I'm curious as to your journey and how you got into real estate and why you got into real estate.
Yeah, that's a good question. So for some reason, I've always been fascinated. I've always been an investor for entrepreneur, whatever it is. I was always flipping shit when I was in college and high school. And I never really visualized myself. Although I did work corporate right out of college for about 2.5 years. I just loved buying stuff and selling stuff for whatever reason. And I had this weird fascination with holding on to shit.
Yeah.
So like holding on to property in my mind, it clicks like it's like safety, right? So real estate was highly tangible, but I was living in California before I moved out here, and you couldn't make shit pencil.
Yeah.
Price points were too high. I was 21 years old. But when I left college and came out here to Arizona, that was 2012. I'm like, I was renting a house in Tempe, and down the road there's a house selling for 150 grand. I'm like, holy crap. So long story short, I kind of took a backwards approach. I started flipping homes. So I didn't really know what facet of real estate I wanted to jump into. I didn't know what wholesaling was. So I just bought 2 homes on the west side back in 2014. I was 24 years old. I made a bunch of money in crypto, and that was my plan on getting it into the market. Was I'll just allocate my crypto holdings into flip projects essentially.
Wow.
So oddly enough, I bought those 2 homes. They're right next door to each other from a wholesaler. Had no clue what a wholesale contract was. I actually bought them from Jesse Delgadillo.
Oh, no way.
He financed the property for me, and this guy made 15 grand on it. This guy made 20 grand.
You're looking
on
at the
it.
HUD,
Looking
right? At the closing table, or
No, I didn't even know what a earnest money check was or title up my contractor who's doing all the work. He's like, yeah, you go to the bank and get $5,000, or I think it was 1,000 back then, and then take it to the title company. I'm like, what's a title company? I'm like, whatever, dude, just don't screw me. So yes, they made, I didn't even know what a HUD was. He's like, yeah, that guy wholesaled it to you for 15 over, and that guy wholesaled it to you for 20 over.
Wow.
I'm like, well, shit, I took all the risk and put up all the money, and I made 25 grand a house. I'm like, that job's way easier. I'm like, if this knucklehead could go out and, get a great deal from a seller, I mean, why can't I?
Yeah.
So from there, I stopped flipping because it was a nightmare, and just started trying to figure out how to buy properties at a discount.
Wow, that's so interesting. It's so crazy because I never knew what wholesaling was either. And I got into wholesaling in 2014 as well, as a matter of fact.
Oh, nice.
But wholesaling was the first thing I got into. I saw an ad, Cody Sperber, standing in front of the bank, right? Chase Bank with the Lamborghini, you can make money with no money down and no credit or bad credit and whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do I do that? But so interesting. So you flipped those 2 properties. At least you made money on them, right?
Yeah, the market was going up at the same time. Yeah. So if it would have stayed where it was, I probably would have lost money. But yeah, I made 25 grand a property, and it was super cool.
Yeah. What were the action steps that you took to learn wholesaling? Like, here you are, right? You kind of have the aha moment of like, oh my gosh, like, that guy over there, like kind of what you're talking about, right? Like, look at what he was able to do. If he can do it, I can do it, right? What did you do after that moment in time, like logistically, to get your first wholesale deal?
Yeah, good question. So back then, there were no gurus back then. So the only resources we had were bigger pockets. So I just try to, I'm a huge, like, before I start anything, I kind of have to know what the hell's going on and like who the players are. And then I try to leverage their experience anyway. So lots of bigger pockets. Everybody said, yeah, go put out bandit signs on large intersections.
What I was doing too.
And then back then it was yellow letters was like the big thing.
Yellow letter HQ.
Yellow letters HQ. And they didn't even, Todd wasn't even I don't even think he was in business back then. But so all I knew was I had to send letters and I had to put out bandit signs. So, freaking every weekend in my car, I drive around Maryville and stick out freaking bandit signs till 2 a.m. And got a couple deals. Got a couple deals from there, and then also I leased a space out on the west side. It was like 53rd Ave and like Indian School. 2012 recession, obviously. I leased one suite for like $250 a month, and I was the only person occupying that building, and it was like a 5-story building.
Oh my gosh!
And so that'd be my workspace because I can't work at home. I have to go somewhere because I just flow better. And I bought a Xerox machine, and I traced my handwriting and put it into a font, and I was just running yellow letters off this like Xerox machine, and I would go and put an ad on Craigslist, and I would charge her, they would charge me like $5 an hour or something. And I'd put them up in this shitty conference room, and there's like 9 or 10 people from Craigslist, like licking and stuffing. And like, there's definitely some crackheads in there.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, I just want you to do me a huge favor. If you're enjoying the show and you're enjoying all the amazing guests that we've been having on lately, then do me a massive favor and smash the like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe if you have not already. I would greatly appreciate it. It would mean the world to me, and we will be able to bring on a lot more big names if you help us out. Now let's get back to the show. For sure.
And then just mail them off and get deals.
Wow, that's so crazy. And then what would you do? Like, because you're just on bigger pockets, like going through the forms, like trying to figure out, like, because I mean, in that moment, I guess, well, maybe you already knew what title company to use from doing your flip, I would imagine then, right?
Yeah.
So you had the title company figured out. So What about getting like a purchase cost? So many people overcomplicate it, I feel like, in 2023, and they don't get started because they're like, oh my God, I don't know the contract, or I don't, whatever it might be, right? So like here you are in 2014. Like, where did you get all that?
I think I used Jesse's old contract. I mean, they're one page, buyer, seller, price, close of escrow.
Yeah.
And I just walk over with like a thing, like a package of these things. And every time I go on appointments, I would just try to get somebody to sign up for it.
Wow.
And I don't even know how I sold my last deals. I definitely got smoked when I sold these things, for sure, because everyone loves the newbie, right?
For
Because
sure.
they have no clue. And I
Yeah.
think I sold some on Bigger Pockets. I sold Carlos Reyes one,
Yep.
and that's before I found out there was like this realtor list. Essentially, they could go and pay like $200 for. Had every realtor in Arizona,
Yep.
and then there's like they had email campaign systems like MailChimp that you uploaded into, and you're violating every single C-SPAN law and the freaking whatever. And I remember we got hosed on our first 3 or 4, and then once I heard this is actually Jalen White. He's like, hey, go buy this and then put it in this. It's like a game changer. I'm like, all right, done. So I did it and I blasted it, and I got like 50 phone calls, and I'm like, this is. I thought I was gonna sell it for 5. I sold it for like 25.
Oh my gosh.
So that's
Dude.
kind of how that was like the step 2 when selling these things.
It's so funny. We were just talking about Jalen White the other day, but man, I remember the good old Jalen White days.
Oh yeah,
and he did the course with Ty Lopez, and I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember when he did he was like the wholesaling Ty Lopez partner,
Yeah.
And they did the little course, and I feel like what's Jalen doing now? Software?
Jalen, he is, I believe he's doing email marketing.
Okay.
Guy's making a freaking fortune off these email things.
Yeah. Yeah. He's always done really well. He's a smart guy.
Super smart. Yeah. It was back then. It was so funny because there was nobody knew each other. Right. And back when I had that crappy little office on the West Side, it was funny because Carlos Reyes, he saw my Instagram and he's like, what is this wholesaling thing? I'm like, I don't know. You just get properties and you sell them, make 5, 10, 15, 20 grand. He's like, let me come to your office and we'll let's figure this thing out. And so it was back then, it was Carlos before he partnered up with Sal, Jalen, and then Alex Sines. And we're kind of trying to figure this thing out together. And obviously we went down our own paths, but that was kind of like our group of our little mastermind group to try to figure it out quicker.
So wild to see how far everybody's come in that amount of time,
Yeah.
Like when you really think back on it, it's only been, it hasn't even been a decade, know, it's been 7 or 8 years or whatever, maybe 9, coming up on a decade for sure. But like, that wasn't that long ago,
That long ago.
I remember it like it was yesterday. And because I mean, Instagram had just come out, but it wasn't like super popular yet, like at all, you know?
Yeah.
Because Cody was talking about it barely, I feel like, on Facebook. And he was like the guy, the clever investor, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, like what's he doing? Back then at least, right?
Yeah.
And man, so cool to see what happened. So then did you go ahead and build like a wholesaling operation at some point? Like when did you say, wait a minute, like I could duplicate this and I could delegate and I can hire people? And like, at what point did you kind of make that transition?
I want to say it was probably a year into it, right? So I was doing it on my own for probably 8 or 9 months. And I was renting for my old roommate down in South Scottsdale, and I was, had him, we were having a great time. Anyways, we had a pool party one Saturday, and, everyone's partying. And I was talking to one of his buddies, and he's like, hey, what do you do? I'm like, well, I'm an engineer, but trying to figure out this real estate wholesale thing. And he's like, dude, that's what I want to do. And I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah, me and my partner, that's kind of what we do right now. We buy at the auction, and then we go and sell packages of homes to some of the institutions, and it's great. And I'm like, damn. He's like, yeah, but it's all dried up. We need to figure out like how to do it different. I'm like, well, I kind of want to do this on my own because I'm like super independent. And he's like, no. Let's sit down and let's try to figure something out. So long story short, I partnered up with Jesse Burrell and my wife now, Danielle Crowell, and Hillary, who was Tommy Mello's old girlfriend or ex-girlfriend. And we put this wholesale team together, and we're doing everything by ourselves. We're like licking, stuffing, stamping, like sending stuff out.
Yeah.
We're going nationwide. We're sending letters to Memphis and Reno, Nevada, and doing deals. And at that point, so Hillary was like, "Hey, my boyfriend Tommy, he's looking at our business. He's like, damn, this is really high margin, and like nothing like this ranks on Google. Let's put a website together and start ranking on Google." And I'm like, all right, fine, let's go.
Yeah.
And so he put together, because he had all these SEO guys in house, and that's back when you're shooting fish in a fire, whatever. And so put this thing together, and we're trying to like figure it out. And all of a sudden, we're just cranking leads. Like we got within like 16 months, we got like our website was like top 3 in the United States for We Buy Houses. And like, dude, it's unfair. Like that, like for every 3 leads that came in, they're closing one for like 30 grand.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, wow, this easy.
Yeah.
And then at that point, we're like, you know what? Screw it. We're going nationwide. This is easy, right? So we had like, at that point, we rented a little Airbnb for a couple of years right next to the giant spring training stadium. Blew out the garage, put a bunch of desks in there. We had like lead intake guys who were taking all these phone calls coming from the website. There was 3 of them. They're taking all the leads in, they're qualifying, and then we had 2 closers. Yep. And so it was just going down the line, and we were doing deals all over the United States.
Wow.
And such a good time back then because, Scottsdale, we're young, the energy's high, and we have a big ass pool, big ass yard, like grilling for lunch and swimming, and you get to hear like the back crack from the spring training games. And yeah, it was such a good time.
Man, that's so cool. And at that point, you were just cranking wholesale deals, right?
Just cranking wholesale deals. We got suckered into some deals because after looking at Arizona stuff for so long, and like, holy crap, we could buy a house in Detroit for like $4,000.
Yeah.
And it rents for like 1,500. Like, let's do that deal. Or like we had this deal up in upstate New York that like whatever, we ended up buying that and flipping it and stuff all over. Terrible decision, but that's how you learn.
We've done it too. Yeah.
Learn.
We've done Ohio.
Oh yeah.
I remember they'd always talk about Ohio, and I'm not saying it's bad, but like when you don't know what you're doing, right? Like in the beginning, we bought some stuff in Atlanta. And there's a couple deals we definitely lost a little bit of money on for sure. Just not knowing any better, right? Like unfinished basements and mold and
because you look at the number, like I could buy this for 50 and I could sell it for 200. But the construction costs are 4 times higher over there, and you got to do X, Y, Z, and and
you have no idea. Yeah,
no idea.
No, I love that. What did you think about like wholesaling? So like here you are, you're building this big operation. Did you continue that big operation? Like, do you still have a big operation now, or what now does that side? Because I know about your rentals and you're acquiring more rentals, or you did in during COVID until now. But are you still wholesaling a lot?
Still wholesaling a lot. Like for every let's say we bring in 10 properties, we're probably wholesaling right now 5 of those. Taking down the other 5, and within those 5, maybe a couple are flips, maybe one of those is a rental today, and the rest are stuff we sell on wraps for cash flow.
What do you think about flipping and this will be an interesting question for people watching, because we almost want to make sure they know when we're filming it, right? Because I feel like the market's changing like every month, but we're in February, right? What do you think about flipping right now? Like because I know a few months ago, I think I would have said stay away from it. But I feel, has that already changed?
It's already changed. Yeah. I mean, rates are up 100 basis points since 10 days ago. It's just so tough to know, right? Because, flipping and wholesaling by nature, it's speculative because you're relying on a wholesale value or a retail value that is uncertain, which is why we transitioned to a lot of, we're buying and selling to Hispanic buyers on wraps, because like that's always going to be in demand. But it just depends. Like you just got to buy extra deep. It's like, okay, where do you think, nobody knows, but where you think values are going to go? We're down 13% in Arizona. If you think we're going to go down another, I mean, if you would have spoke to me 4 weeks ago, I would have said, hey, look, we're stabilizing, we're finding a floor, but now it's it's just so hard.
It is.
But yeah, I would just budget in, maybe shave 10% off what you think you'd sell it for. And if you're still okay with the numbers, and go for it.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people, right? Like, just take off. If we're in a declining market, I mean, and every sub market is different. So like throughout the nation, right? When you look at all of the markets, they're all a little different, but like then figure your ARV's 10% less than it is today. And if the numbers still work, then you've got a deal.
You still got a deal, yeah. And I always look at it as, if I take this down and flip it and I get stuck with it, can I still rent it out and break even?
Have multiple exit strategies.
Multiple exits, yeah. You don't want to take down the $1 million Scottsdale and like where your only choice is to flip it, or else you have to give the house back to the lender.
Sure. Yeah, like it's not a deal. The only, and a lot of people did that, right? And a lot of people have admitted it. I was lucky to not do that. I know Temp got stuck with some properties he didn't necessarily want. I think he came out on top. But even like Ryan Pineda's talk, he's like, dude, I lost like $500,000, and luckily I think most of the dudes that I know, at least that got stuck with some like luxury flips, that they bought in May of 2022. They could afford to lose a little bit of money. Like if anything, it was a tax write-off and whatever,
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it as, okay, like how much money did I make in the last 2 years? Right. Okay, I could afford to give up $500,000.
For sure. Yeah, because a lot of these dudes absolutely dominated it the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
What do you think right now about, everybody, I feel like, at least from what I'm seeing, is talking about novations and wraps, and we just have Brandon Simmons in here. If you've ever wanted to get into wholesaling real estate and you want to learn how to flip contracts and wholesale, right? Maybe you're brand new, maybe you've never wholesaled a deal, or maybe you're even doing a couple of deals a month right now, but you want to learn how to do more. Instead of joining my coaching program or somebody else's coaching program, we're actually looking to hire. So go ahead and message me 480-418-5339 and send me a text message opportunity. Okay, so if you want to work with me, you want to work with my incredible team, you want all of our leads, you want all of our systems, all of our processes, everything, right? And I've done about 2,000 wholesale deals in my career, then go ahead, shoot me a text, 480-418-5339, and message me opportunity. And look, especially if you're in my state, okay, the state of Arizona. If you live in Arizona and you want to get into wholesaling, this especially is an opportunity for you, because you can come sit right in this office with my entire team and be a part of one of the biggest wholesaling companies in the country. I look forward to talking to you. A couple days ago, I don't know if you're familiar, talking about wraps and sub-twos and, the whole thing, right? Like, what do you think about all that? I mean, do you think people should go learn, like for somebody watching maybe that's newer, right? Like, should they go try to learn the game of creative, or should they try to, in your opinion, stick to the basics of just wholesaling?
Man, it's tough because, different, like people's minds work in different ways. It's what I may find is basic somebody else might find what I think is hard is easy, right? And so like creative deals like sub-twos, wraps, stuff like that, it's highly technical. I would agree that now's a really good time to do it, just because the market's soft and buyers aren't as eager to go into a 7% loan. So I don't know. I just think it depends on your flavor. I've seen young dudes, that's all they started off with was sub-twos and wraps, and they're freaking smoking these guys, and they're picking up insane deals. I think for me, I've been in this for too long where I'm like overeducated. It's always good as a young guy to have a little bit of that naiveness to them.
Yeah, dude, I always say that. The naive guy will win.
Oh, dude, absolutely.
He doesn't ever think it.
Like, I was talking to this young kid the other day. I bought a house from him yesterday. It's like, yeah, I picked up 2 Maryvale homes with no money down, and I'm paying him $500 a month principal only. I'm like, bro. Gosh. Dude, yes.
It's like the deal of a lifetime.
Like, how does that even come out of your mouth? Like, I've seen too much where like that'd make me pucker up a little bit, even proposing that. But like that naive aspect, like use that to your advantage. But at the same, like, I don't know if it's what's basic and what's not. But if you're good at it,
Yeah.
then go for it.
Yeah. And do you think like for a lot of these guys that you're talking to, are they're just wholesaling the wrap, or they're wholesaling the sub two, right? Or wholesaling whatever.
Yep.
So do you well, I guess another question I have too is like, what do you prefer? A sub two, like a straight up sub two, right? Or a sub two where it's actually like a wrap, like positioned as a wrap, where you create like here I am talking to Brandon Simmons, right? And he's like, and this is kind of a controversial topic where Brandon's like, dude, I hate straight up sub twos. He's like, I like to do a wrap where I create a new note with the seller and the seller can have recourse. But you're a smart guy. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, so I probably did 50 of these back in 2018. Did a lot of sub twos, no wraps. You know, it really depends. With sub twos, you have a lot more control over them. But there's a lot more risk on the seller.
Yes.
If you originate a new note where you do an exact wrap, there's less risk. It's an easy sell.
Less risk for the seller.
Less risk to the seller, right? But I guess it's the same risk profile to the buyer, so why not do them? I don't know. I like having a little bit more control if I have to call in to the lender and or if I need to go and get payoffs or have to restructure something, or let's say that this actually happened. Back then they would send loan mods because we'd have the seller change their address to our address so we'd get all their mail. Yeah, loan mod. Modify your loan from a 30-year to a 40-year and sign here. Yeah, okay, but done.
Yeah.
If that was a wrap transaction, you really wouldn't have that flexibility.
It'd be very difficult to pull that off.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's all the same thing. It
Sure.
just depends on what your flavor is.
Do you ever worry that, I guess, like, and I haven't done very many sub twos, so I'm curious more than anything, and I hope somebody watching will be curious, but I've done thousands of wholesale deals, right? But like with a sub two, do you worry that it's like, hey, I'm good for it, right? Like if I did a sub two, let's just say with a seller, and I'm good for it, but I wholesale it to an end buyer, and the end buyer stops making the payment, right? Like, do I sleep well at night, I guess, like knowing that, like, the seller might end up getting screwed and I'm the one that brought the buyer? Or do you step back into the picture if that happens and take it and resell it to a new buyer?
I think we only wholesaled one sub two.
So you keep them.
I keep them.
Yeah.
Because we made all these promises to the seller. And last thing we want to do is put the seller's credit in the hands of somebody else that we're not 100% sure if they're going to perform or not. So the one that we did wholesale, we sold it on a wrap. We wrapped the seller's underlying, and then we re-wrapped it to that new buyer. So if that new buyer ever stopped paying, then boom,
There's recourse.
We step back in and we pay on that, and then we foreclose on that guy.
I really like that answer, actually. Like that, I can comprehend and understand. Like it makes all the sense in the world to me why you would just keep them all. Because why wouldn't you almost? Like, I mean, I guess if somebody's watching and they're brand new, then maybe they just want quick money. And that's the only reason that they would be trying to wholesale them.
Yeah, they're cash intensive because you got to catch them up 15. And let's say you give the seller another 10. And then you're buying a sub two. And who knows what the seller did inside that house. Sure. And then you're putting in another 25. And all of a sudden you look up and you're into it for 55 grand cash. Right. And it's not like you could refi your cash out because the whole reason you bought it was for that mortgage, right? So yeah, they're very cash intensive. So like how we got, like what we did with those was we would resell them on wraps. We would say, hey, 30, 40 grand down. We'll create a brand new 30-year fix for you at 8 or 9% interest, fully amortized. Sure. So then now we're only leaving 15 in this deal. We sold it at 110% of market value. Sure. And now we're cash flowing $1,000 a month, just the difference between the debt service on the two notes, right? Plus you get that balance sheet equity, the difference between the two notes, which could be 50, 100 grand. So instead of like renting them, being out 50 grand in cash where you're making $200 a month, now only have 10 into it, cash flow $1,000 a month. And whenever they refinance or sell it, you get a 50, 100 grand pop at that point.
I like that. Yeah, it's a really good way to do it.
And then it's no longer a rental where you're managing it. It's all on them. We've never had any, once we've like sold a deal like that on seller finance, we've never heard one thing from them.
Wow.
It's just complete passive. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, and anybody would be dumb to default or I mean, like you know what I mean? I mean, because it's just like you're taking over hypothetically a 3% note where like why would you lose that property?
Correct.
You know, like
exactly.
like it's a stupid move, right? Like which is the reason why I think if you can afford to just keep them yourself, like you totally should.
Totally should.
You know, and that's our goal right now, right? Like a big goal of ours is okay, our businesses just print money, right? And we wholesale 40-ish probably houses a month right now, not including retail. So it's like, dude, we want to start building a portfolio now, you know? I mean, we have a few rentals, but they're just long-term regular rentals.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's either this is my take. I feel like with the rental portfolio, it's either all or nothing, just because you have to get to a scale where it starts to get sexy. Because if you pick up onesie twosies, that doesn't scratch the itch, right? No. You just gotta make that.
Go all in.
You just gotta go for it.
Yeah, which we want to do for sure. Yeah. What do you think? Are you licensed? Are you an agent? Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you ever been an agent?
No.
What do you think about novation?
You know, conceptually, it sounds like a cool idea. I never really looked into it, to be honest. There's just, I mean, there's 1,000 things in this freaking world. It's just one thing that I haven't really had an opportunity to take a look at.
Yeah, we just picked up a couple for the first time ever. So I'm still kind of like trying to figure out if I like them or not. You know, like, I mean, I was on the phone with Rafael Cortez this morning, and he was trying to wrap his brain around like practically how to do them and not break the law or do the wrong thing, you know, and I'm still trying to understand, like, is it worth it? You know, like we've done, like, I think we've closed one and we have like 2 or 3 of our total, like 54 that we have pending right now. We have 2 or 3 are novation, and I'm like, I don't know, you know, like they're a little iffy too. I get that it's cool to be able to offer creative to the seller. If they really need that option, it's cool to give them that option of like, hey, here's what we can do for you, you know, but I never want to put anybody in jeopardy or anything either.
Yeah, everything has a place, you know. That's why it's so good to be educated and have more than a couple different strategies in your tool belt. But I know a lot of guys making a ton of money off these novations.
I do too.
And my title,
Corey Geary.
Yeah, Corey Geary, and a lot of guys. Some buddies out in Vegas, and my title guy, he's like, hey, you should look into these novations, because I see these HUDs and they're insane.
They're nuts. Yeah. You said a little while ago that you were an engineer prior to getting into wholesaling and getting into real estate. Talk to me about that. Like what had you grew up, you wanted to be an engineer, or?
No, not at all. I had no clue what I wanted to do. I, probably about my senior year of high school, my dad's like, well, what do you want to do? I have no idea. He's like, well, maybe go be an engineer. Those are always in demand. I'm like, yeah, all right, cool. Let's do it. And he's like, what school do you want to go to? I'm like, I have no idea. So I applied to 15 different colleges, got into every single one of them. And he's like, you should go to Cal Poly. That'll be fun. I'm like, all right, I'll go to Cal Poly. And just busted my ass. And it was freaking hard. Holy shit. Like I live with wrestlers and soccer players, and they're all, phys ed majors. And I was the only engineer in the house, and I had to, like, I'm not that smart, and I had to work literally every freaking waking hour to like get like a C+ or a B. So it was rough, but I did it, and I went into the corporate world for 2.5 years, and I hated it. And I always knew, this is not obviously what I'm going to be doing. So I just found what I wanted to double down on, and I just went for it, which was flipping homes and doing real estate.
Yeah. Do you think that somebody watching right now who's on the fence of going to college or not going to college, what are your thoughts on going to school? Do you think it's good or bad, or does it depend?
I think it depends on the person, right? Because not everybody's brains are built like ours. But I liked college because I built so many good relationships with some incredible people and some very wealthy families that, you can never take away that college bond and experience.
Yeah.
So like if you're like whatever, go through the motions, like, but it's just a great time to meet people that come from a lot of different places because I grew up on a farm town in California. I had no clue that you could go and have a 10,000 square foot house in La Jolla or Lido Island and Newport and all this stuff. And it just opened my eyes to just different, different
Yeah.
things, different lifestyles. And
Yeah.
I think and I've always been an entrepreneur, but after seeing that, I'm like, holy shit, there's a whole nother level to this thing. I had no clue,
Yeah.
because I never watched TV and I never saw like, all this. So the firsthand exposure is what got me. So I think it's valuable, but if you're, and it's for it, it has its place, if
Yeah.
you're a highly analytical guy and you want to be a doctor or an attorney, the world needs those, but
You have to do it.
got to do it.
For sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I think it really is the case by case, and there's no one size fits all. You've got to figure it out for yourself. But I always tell people like, don't do it for like your parents, or don't do it for the wrong reason, right?
Yeah.
Like do it for you. If you're gonna do it, like do it for you. And what was your childhood like? Like you're a phenomenal entrepreneur, obviously, right? So like, was your family in the entrepreneur world, and like what was like your upbringing, like parents married, unmarried, divorced, like how was that kind of growing up?
Yeah, so my parents, they were childhood sweethearts, and they're still together today, and it's incredible. But we couldn't be, my parents and even my sister were like, I'm so the opposite of them. I'm just like, for me, I don't see risk. Like when I get interested in something, I just don't. I look past risk until I start getting really good at it, and then that risk starts to kick in. But I just, I don't know. It's hard to really put what makes me different. I always say this jokingly that my dad would always yell at me every time I would leave a room and tell me to turn the lights off, and I'm like, Dad, this. I was like in high school, I'm like, that can't be more than freaking $1 a month. And I was just so like, for me, like I value convenience and being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And like, I think that's my why. If I want to go and blow a bunch of money over here, if I want that thing over there, go over here. Like, I have the option just to do it.
You don't have to think about it.
I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't like being like the moment it's it's like an ex-girlfriend. Like the moment like I feel like I'm trapped or like somebody's trying to like hold me down, that's when I get like really skittish. So like just breaking those chains off, and having that freedom, I think that's why I do what I do today.
Yeah, I can relate to that actually a lot. I've never really thought of it like that, but I'm the same way. Like I love being able to do what I want when I want, and I hate the feeling of like I can't do something, or like why am I doing that, or why am I being told to do that, or like
Exactly.
And I'm the kind of guy where I'll argue it. It's like, well, why? How come? Like who said that I have to do that? Like and what gives you that credit? Not in like a egotistical type of way, just like I'm genuinely curious. Like I can't figure it out, and I think I think every entrepreneur has that though, to a degree. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. And every entrepreneur has different whys. I just know like from a psychological perspective, knowing that I have to like answer to somebody or like do something for somebody else, like psychologically it feels like somebody's putting a ceiling on my head and it's just like pushing down, and it just makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah. And plus like, I don't know. I've always been kind of a contrarian on a lot of things, just kind of going the opposite direction of like, oh, this is really cool over here. Okay, well, I'm going to go find something else that's a little bit cooler and just see what's over here. So I don't know, maybe a combination of all these different attributes is what, makes me different.
Yeah, sure. What do you think about like risk tolerance? So you said that you have a high tolerance to risk, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I do as well. And I'm somebody who really borderline, like my risk tolerance is very high. Like I don't really comprehend risk. I do, but it doesn't phase me. I'll do it anyways, right? And obviously, like, there is a limit to that. I'm not gonna like go, bet my life savings on black, but I will not run away from an opportunity, like where you see, I think a lot of people do. Like, where do you think that comes from? Like for you, because I feel like I'm very similar to you in that way.
Yeah, I would put risk into two different buckets for me, at least. One being like investment risk, and the other one being like opportunity and maybe operational risk, or like, let's say, let's go build a company and let's go bootstrap it and go try this. Like
Sure.
that, I find that in like a different bucket of risk.
Yeah.
Like new money making ventures. I don't see risk over here. On the investment side, and I used to be a lot more, a lot more risky back in my younger days because I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
A little bit more risk adverse now, but I look at risk in the investment side a lot differently. Like I need, I'm not looking at every single freaking thing that could go wrong, but I'm kind of, dipping my toe in and seeing how that one thing went. And the moment that one thing went right, then I'm like, okay, how do I scale this? My wife, she is absolutely way more riskier than me. Holy shit, she has balls of steel.
Really?
Balls of steel. Holy
Wow.
shit.
Give me an example.
Okay, so she started back like right out of college. She ran the entire operations for Israeli private equity group who came out to Arizona to buy homes at the auction and make a bunch of money, right? Mm-hmm. So she ran all the acquisitions, all the she's PMing all the construction. She's running all the finance, managing all of the out of country money. She's doing everything, buying 20 homes a day, flipping them the invitation homes, 10 grand a pop, and just for like whatever. So she did that for 3 or 4 years and then broke off on her own. And she just started flipping like our homes in Arcadia. She knew what she was doing, but she saw no risk. She's like, I could freaking do anything I want, which she totally can. Like her brain is actually incredible. Fast forward. So she got her ass kicked on a couple of those projects. And then about a year later, we see a deal come over on White Gates, up on Camelback Mountain from a wholesaler. 1.1 million on an acre. She's like, let's fucking flip this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I whatever. If that's what you want to do, like go for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, she got in there, was going to renovate this thing, ended up knocking it down, building like an 8,000 square foot, like modern mansion.
Wow.
Ended up selling it to Austin Matthews, that hockey player kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 23 years old or whatever. And I'm like, you have some freaking balls. I would have never done that.
Wow.
But yeah.
What was the profit on that deal? Give roughly.
Oh, okay. You want to know something funny? So if we would have held that deal for one more month, we would have lost money on it.
Really?
We made 30 grand on $3 million.
Oh my God. Wow. What was the timeline? That had to have played a role, right?
Yeah.
When did you buy it? What year?
So we bought that one in 18 and sold it in 19.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
The market was going up some.
It was okay.
But it wasn't like the market was. I mean, you should have bought that thing and rented it and sold it in 2022.
Oh, yeah, except the debt service on that thing was like 30 grand a month.
Oh, man, that's wild. How did she, how'd you pull that flip off? Such a big flip. Like, to partner up with a builder?
Yeah, she partnered up with the builder, and, it was a friend builder, and we joint ventured with our money and the builder, give everybody a piece, so everybody's interest was there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, she found the builder, good buddy, and they designed it together, and they just started ripping into it and just putting it together.
I love
it. It was so much fun. It sat for freaking ever, like 150 days, but we had like 5 or 6 blowout parties. While that thing was sitting, had like the DJ and the cocktail waitresses, and have like all the real estate guys over and just have a blast.
That's awesome. That's really cool. What you said that you did crypto, right? Mm-hmm. At one point, like where at in your career did you end up in the crypto world? And then like, what did you do? Were you day trading crypto?
Eventually led to that. So this was back in graduated college 2012. So I had a really good buddy back then. He was like the summa cum laude of our college, attorney, smart guy. I remember going to his house one day and he's like, "Hey, have you seen this like Bitcoin stuff?" Like, no, what is that? It's like, yeah, it's a digital coin. I'm like, what? Okay, that's weird. He's like, yeah, just buy some. So back in college, kind of a shameful. I made fake IDs in college.
Uh-huh.
That's how I supported myself. So I had all this cash, like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'm like, where am I going to put this thing? I already bought all the gold I could.
Yep.
I'm like, I'll put some into crypto. And so I bought it at 13 bucks. Didn't really do anything for about 3 or 4 months. All of a sudden it went up to like 21 and then like 42. And then it was like, into the hundreds. And I'm like,
Yeah.
holy crap. I'm like, this has to be a bubble. This is a bubble for sure. So I sold off. And then all of a sudden they came out with Litecoin.
Mm.
Like, okay. And then they came out with like a couple different ones that, I mean, there was only like 3 or 4 back then. And there's no trading platforms until eventually one group put together a trading platform where you could go in and out of USD, Bitcoin, and Litecoin.
Mhm.
And there was something, back then, the Greece debt crisis.
Oh my gosh.
So there was huge run on the banks in Greece, and nobody could pull out any money out of the ATMs. Everybody was freaking out, right? That was before like they injected a bunch of cash into the European Union, and then crypto just started going like because all these Greek guys were buying crypto as like, hey, I could trade this internationally and it's like holding value. So there's all these transactions within crypto, and it was causing it to become super volatile.
Hmm.
So I remember one day, Bitcoin was going from $50 to $100 every 5 minutes for like 3 days.
Wow.
And so I remember I'm sitting there on my patio. This is when I'm still renting out in Scottsdale. Just trading. I would wait till it hit 50. I'd buy, sell it at 100, buy at 50, sell it at 100. I did that probably 300 times.
Wow.
And I probably brought in like 300 Bitcoins, like 50, 60 grand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap, this is insane. So anyways, I paid my roommate rent in Bitcoin, and it like went up like 100 times. He bought cars and patio furniture, and I was about to sell out of everything. 'Cause that's when it was in like the 3 or 400s. And before I did, my dad's like, "Hey, sell me $1,000 worth." I'm like, "Dad, you don't want this." He's like, "Who cares? It's $1,000." So I actually think I sold him. I gave him 25 for a grand, and he still has it today.
No way.
So I honestly don't think he knows how to sell it. So he just always
Oh
held
my
on to
gosh.
it. And yeah, it turned into like $1 million. And
That's wild,
yeah,
dude. I bet you wish you would have held it. Did you hold on to any?
no,
You sold it all,
I
huh?
have a wallet out there that I don't have the password on, and it has like 300 or 500 Bitcoins.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. Dude, I have some experience with Bitcoin too, Same type of thing. Sold it at the bottom, not that low. I sold mine at a couple grand probably,
Mm.
and we used to get paid in Bitcoin, like for a lot of the stuff that we did, like way back in the day. I remember like one time it went up to like 5 grand, and I was like, oh my God, like, and
So
we sold everything, and then like a month later it was at like 12 grand or something. I was like, gosh dang it, like
gosh,
why did I do
it's
that?
so hard. It's
Yeah.
man, it's like because I still don't
Yeah.
nobody understands the underlying fundamentals on it. I'm just like, I'll take my money, just go into real estate and
Yeah.
be happy, I guess.
Yeah, and good thing you did, right? You've obviously dominated the real estate market. I want to talk about wholesaling a little bit more for people watching. Obviously have done a lot in that world, right? What would you recommend if you were getting into wholesaling in 2023? Like, where would you start now, knowing what you know now? What would you do?
Man, there's just so much information, and it causes so much competition. Back
Mm.
then, whatever, you could trip over a house and make money. It was easy. Now it's a lot more difficult. Um, Personally, what I would do is I would figure out you got to go after like the ultra distressed if you're going to have the best shot. I think the way through that would be I would probably just start harassing pre foreclosures,
Mm.
harassing people that are in pre foreclosure, knock on the doors, and just figure out a way to get into their living room. Because once that happens, like you're likely the only guy, given how these guys are, and you could probably structure something. So I would get experience probably on the pre-foreclosure side. Everything else is very data intensive, and if you want to, stack lists and go after like pre-probates, it starts to become a little bit more complicated. I would keep it caveman style. Go after pre-foreclosures and just get inside the living room.
All right, so you're brand new. You just listen to that. You don't even know where to get a pre-foreclosure. Where do you get a pre-foreclosure? Like, where do you get the data? Somebody who's watching who doesn't even know how to do that.
I would call up a title company, just have them give you a list.
Yep.
Or I don't know, it's all free everywhere. Like hit up Zack or find an agent who has MLS access and have them pull it for you.
Yeah, because you can do it right in Monsoon, I believe, right?
Yeah.
How accurate is that? Is it right on the money?
Right on the money.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't go through like CoreLogic or Atom Data or any of these guys anymore. I figure out how to get it exclusively through Monsoon or through the tax records direct.
Yeah, which is always probably the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything is in there. I just didn't know, the auction date and all that. I didn't know how accurate that was.
Super accurate.
Okay.
Yeah. If you postpone a foreclosure, it'll show up in 24 hours on Monsoon.
Interesting. Yeah. Would you go door knock them if you were brand new? Or would you try to like call them?
I would try calling first. I would literally pull out your cell phone and just start ripping it with text messages. Don't
one-off text.
Don't get like a dialing system or like a text system or anything like that, because they're just so finicky right now. I would make yourself different and show up as a blue bubble on a foreclosure, cell phone.
I love
Show up
that.
as a blue bubble. It's going to take a long ass time.
Yep.
But I guarantee you your texts are going through like 99% of the time over the guys using a text platform.
100%. Yeah. The text platforms what do you think the future of that is? I mean, do you think that in a year or 5 years we'll even be able to text?
No.
I
think it's ruined.
Yeah.
I think it's ruined. I started texting in 2018 and I stopped in 2020. Back then it was unfair.
Oh my gosh.
Unfair. I got 15 deals by just pulling the pre-foreclosure list, sending it out, 2,200 records, 15 deals.
Wow.
That was back before there was skip tracing. I had to go and hack TLO with like robots and extract the data I needed. And that's when Jason Nickel just came out with Lead Sherpa and he didn't know how to get it off the ground. So I was in there breaking it for him.
Oh my gosh.
So like I had the pre-foreclosure data, which everybody has, whatever. But I had TLO data. Nobody had that. And I had Lead Sherpa. Nobody was using text platforms.
Yep.
And that was before all these TCPA laws and, filter and spam likely was coming out. And it was I felt kind of like, what's that feeling where like something it's going so good. Like you have a rush of endorphins. Like this is going to make millions.
Yeah.
And nobody even knows about it.
So and there's like a clock.
Exactly.
Like it's gonna run out. You're like, oh man, how long am I gonna be able to do it?
Then I told all my buddies, who then turned guru, and then it was ruined.
Yeah, of course.
Once it got out.
Yeah. And now nothing. You can't. There's nothing secret anymore. You can't keep it a secret, because if there's a thing that you could do, everybody wants to make money on it online, right? So you want to tell the world so you can get your affiliate link or whatever, and just the reality of it, right?
Exactly. That's why I have a couple tools I just don't tell anybody, because if I tell somebody, it's gonna get freaking crushed.
Yeah, I love that, dude. What do you think about cold calling in the future? Do you think you'll be able to do that forever?
I think cold calling will always be good. Always be good. You're gonna break some laws, but that's just a risk.
Yeah.
I think cold calling will always be good.
Yeah, because there's really no way. Like, they can try to crack down on that, but it's a lot more difficult, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because you could have your servers in Egypt and contract, some out of country firm and put all the liability on them.
Yeah.
And they're not going to subpoena like an Egyptian call group, So there's ways around it. I think it'll be less effective simply because, these carriers are getting really smart on what's an actual like phone number and like what's a VoIP phone number. But so your cost per deal is gonna go up, right? But that's workable.
cost per deal will almost just continue to go up
Correct.
now to infinity and beyond. Like
Correct. Yeah. It's never going to go down ever.
yeah,
So you're
never.
right.
Yeah, and well, that and then also the homeowner too, right, is getting smarter
It's way smarter.
in general.
They have access to so much information. That's why some of these economists are saying, like this recession will probably be the quickest recession that we have, simply because everybody's a lot more educated and there's a lot more information. So like, back in like the 90s, if rates went from 7 to 8, like who would know? Like nobody
Right.
would even like care or know. But with all these media outlets pushing like this is bad, and people see these headlines like, oh my God,
Yeah.
it's gonna. But yeah, so information's flowing a lot quicker, and people are able to make decisions like in real time. But you're right. Homeowners are well educated. They have Zillow, and they could they could put their home in offer pad or whatever. So you're right. Everything's gonna be more difficult.
Yeah. What do you think if you had a little bit of a budget and you were so like the question before was how would you wholesale if you're brand new, right? You didn't know anything.
Mhm.
You obviously took that as, hey, the person doesn't have any money, right? Because they're brand new, right? So it's go, pre-foreclosures, it's free, all that's like free, right? Let's just say you were doing a couple of deals a month, and I talked to a lot of people who, they're doing a couple deals like here and there. Like, how do they turn that into a consistent model?
What I would do is in my opinion, I would hire some cold callers. I wouldn't go overseas. I would go American.
Really?
I would go American because it's going to be more expensive. I'm a quality over quantity guy. It's going to be more expensive, but you could be right there to train him on. You could be a lot more hands-on. Some of these deals take a little bit of elbow grease that somebody overseas just does not have the resources or the knowledge to take care of.
I agree with that.
So it's kind of like, because I've ran it both ways. I owned Call Geeks for 3 or 4 years. I had a couple call centers before that, and I've ran 500 VAs, and they're freaking great. But no matter how much training you put on these guys, at the end of the day, they're overseas and they do care, but they don't understand the cultural gap is just too big to bridge. So I would have 2 Americans, expensive, and I would just train the shit out of those guys to cold call, understand how your model works, and have them see how it goes full life cycle. Because even if let's say you're hiring a brand new acquisition guy, that guy does not know what the hell he's doing for about a year, right? It's like, oh, we buy homes cheap and we sell them a little less cheap. Cool, right? Had tons of acquisition guys. They do not get it for at least a year. I mean, some get it quicker, but so having them see it full cycle, and then eventually having those frontline cold callers, those American guys, transition into an acquisition guy. I think that's kind of a good model for somebody who has $5,000 a month to get started on.
Would you hire them in house, or would you have like a virtual in 2023, right? Like right now, you're going to go hire a couple of Americans. Like, would you try to get an office space and have them come into the office, or would you like find well, I guess you could say like a virtual act guy, but somebody who's in America?
I would do your best to find a office. If you have to go to freaking South Phoenix and get one, go do it. Because at least in our office, like information flows so fast between our groups. It's like, hey, I got this deal, or one of our acquisition guys turns around and says, hey, I got this seller. He wants to structure it like this. What do you think? Like, to our dispo guys, like, okay, well, maybe try to get it here, here, and here. If you structure it this way, make sure you have this. And it's just like, it's so much easier to turn your chair around and say, hey, this is what I got.
Yeah.
Like, let's figure out what's sellable, or what we could take down as a company. So I'm a firm believer in having that collaboration in real time.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Slack's great, picking up the phone and doing that thing, but it just takes an extra step.
I always tell people like you should we're in the people business, man. Like, you got to have an office. I think COVID was interesting, right? Because it's like people, I see how like Google or Apple or like Microsoft, like sure, like great, like have everybody work from home, right?
Mhm.
You've got $1 billion budget.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if your employee, half of them are watching Netflix while they're supposed to be working, right? But like if you're like a guy like you or me, just a normal guy trying to build a company, in like the real estate world in particular, like I really think like having an office, like I've been wholesaling about the same time you have. And my success is largely predicated on the fact that we've always had like a good culture,
Hmm.
and we've always had like people that want to show up every day, and everybody's excited to be here. And I do not think under any circumstance I would have been able to accomplish what I accomplished without an office.
Very hard because you got to have that energy, right? Like somebody in the office gets a deal and everyone,
Fired up, man.
fired up, and
Yeah.
you can't feel that over the phone. You
Yeah.
could be, I could have a acquisition guy in North Carolina and this guy gets a deal over here and like they don't know like
Yeah.
when they get discouraged, like, okay, well, what am I actually doing here? If you're in the office or like they remember like, okay, this is why I'm here.
Mhm.
It's for this energy and this camaraderie and like that feeling of like helping people like get deals done together.
Yeah. So valuable. What is the future of wholesaling?
Man, good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it'll always be there.
You think so?
I think
Yeah.
so.
There's always a way to do it, right?
I think there'll always be a way to do it.
Yeah. You see like Illinois and these different places that are trying to make it more difficult. Do you think that's good or bad? Like, does it weed out the people that maybe should have never been doing it to begin with?
Selfishly, I like it,
Mhm.
because it weeds out the smaller guys. Like if you're a wholesale group and you have the ability to, or you use that company to buy deals and flip them or rent whatever, like you're in a better spot.
Yeah.
Um,
Because you have the ability, if you need to
close it.
close on the deal.
Correct.
And the relationships and the knowledge and the wisdom and the confidence and the whole thing. Yeah.
But at the same time, if your model depends on other wholesalers bringing you really good deals, then it's a bad thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And if you haven't been in the game long enough, then you don't have the confidence, you don't have the knowledge to take a deal down. You're not really confident in your underwriting ability. Like you're probably not going to take it down, right?
Yeah.
And if you can't take it down, you're going to miss out on opportunity, I think, as time goes along. If you've ever wanted to get into wholesaling real estate and you want to learn how to flip contracts and wholesale, right? Maybe you're brand new, maybe you've never wholesaled a deal, or maybe you're even doing a couple of deals a month right now, but you want to learn how to do more. Instead of joining my coaching program or somebody else's coaching program, we're actually looking to hire. So go ahead and message me 480-418-5339 and send me a text message opportunity. Okay, so if you want to work with me, you want to work with my incredible team, you want all of our leads, you want all of our systems, all of our processes, everything, right? And I've done about 2,000 wholesale deals in my career, then go ahead, shoot me a text, 480-418-5339, and message me opportunity. And look, especially if you're in my state, okay, the state of Arizona. If you live in Arizona and you want to get into wholesaling, this especially is an opportunity for you because you can come sit right in this office with my entire team and be a part of one of the biggest wholesaling companies in the country. I look forward to talking to you. Right.
Correct. Exactly.
If you were brand new in the game, would you go like work for another guy? Like, have you ever recommended that to people? Like, hey, go find a big guy in the industry and just go work for them for a year?
I would advocate for it, because you're going to cut a lot of the learning curve. But at the same time, going back to being naive, if you go out and do it on your own, you may look at something a little bit more different. And that could be what makes you successful.
Sure.
But given how cutthroat this market is right now, especially like in the wholesale world, it might make sense to go work with somebody and just figure out how to structure deals.
I'm curious as to your changing gears a little bit as to the allocation of your overall investment strategy. So like, are you largely in real estate? Do you have any allocation or any exposure in the stock market? Do you have any crypto exposure? Like, do you have exposure in any other industries or just real estate primarily?
I do, yeah. I have some exposure in equities, not a ton. I want to start allocating more just as a hedge against other sectors.
Mhm.
I'm an early stage or early seed investor into a wellness brand, a hospitality resort out in Zion. It's a 80 key hotel,
Mm.
all wellness, super cool, like Amangiri style.
Wow.
Um,
Zion. Where's
Zion,
that at?
Zion National Forest.
Hmm.
It's in Utah.
Okay.
Yeah, insane. I mean,
Wow.
it blew up during COVID because like all the Instagram influencers would go there and take a picture. Like incredible.
Mhm.
So have a building a resort there and a couple other locations, one's in Hawaii. Supplement brand and yeah, that's all the exposure I
Okay.
have in the startup world.
What's the percentage of your overall let's call it like net worth, I guess, in real estate, would you say right now?
Probably 70%.
Would you like in the future for that number to be lower or higher?
Um, Probably I think 70 is a sweet spot.
Yeah.
It just really depends because like it's not like I'm going into a REIT,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm like buying shares at market value. I'm in and out of real estate at a pretty good discount.
Sure.
We have different strategies that a REIT can't necessarily put into their vehicle.
Agreed.
So I don't know, 70 is pretty good. I'll probably be more overweighted in real estate as time goes on,
Yeah.
but I don't see it changing.
When you're a real estate guy, I think it's okay. When you understand the game at a really high level, I think if you're at like, if you had like, let's just say like a doctor, a lawyer, somebody who maybe they've got a lot of money, but they don't like, they're not in the day to day of being able to look at a deal, know if it's a deal, buy it below market value, figure out the exit strategy, and then be heavier in that sector than in other sectors, it might not be as good.
Correct. Yeah, because I mean we do this every single day. It's our business. We know we're not just buying one house a year on the MLS and
Right.
renting it out. Like we're actually operating this stuff and getting in there and figuring out what highest and best use is for it. It's a little bit different for us as professionals, but I don't think it's terrible being overweight.
Sure. Yeah. Do you believe in Airbnb at all by any chance?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Not
Tough
ne-
market.
you know, I'm a firm I'm a believer that there's no magic asset class or something that produces excess returns, like excess yield without the risk. So naturally, as a contrarian, if I see, 15%, 15 caps on an Airbnb, I'm like, that's really good, but where's the risk, right?
Yeah.
Because, eventually that 15 will turn into a 10 once capital starts going into it till it hits a break even point, like a break even risk adjusted return,
Sure.
at which point I rather just go long term rental on it.
Because the amount of energy and work.
Amount of energy and work, and you know, I had the option. I have a ton of rentals in Scottsdale. I was talking to some Airbnb guys, like, hey, I could get $4,000 a month for these things. Interested in going to Airbnb? You're like, if you're getting $4,000 a month, don't even freaking bother.
Mm.
Don't even do it. Like
Mhm.
long term, you will make more money doing that.
Yeah. So interesting. Yeah.
So interesting. It's tough.
It is tough.
It's definitely a sexy
I
asset
don't have
class.
any Airbnbs at all right now. I mean, I've got a lot of buddies who do,
Mhm.
but dude, they're all over the place. Like I'll talk to some people and like I think maybe you own a few here and there, but then it goes back to like your time and your energy and your bandwidth, right?
Mhm.
Like I always go back to bandwidth. Like what? Because you get to a certain point as an entrepreneur where like, yeah, theoretically I could go do pretty much anything I put my mind to,
Right.
right? But like how much energy and time is it going to take out of my day and what else could I do with that time and energy?
Absolutely. You either have to make a business out of it or you just don't do it altogether.
So it's so powerful. It's what you were saying in the beginning
Mhm.
about with rental properties in general. Like you've got to go all in if you're going to do it, right?
You got to.
Which I've wanted to. I own a few, but it makes all the sense in the world because with anything that like any business that we run, we're all in.
Mhm.
Therefore, we crush it, right? But like anytime I go dabble in anything, like I don't do very well,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Because it's just it's a hobby.
Well, yeah, we always have the itch to get creative in something, and you just want to get creative and try something. But my older age, I've really tried to put the reins on it a little bit, and I just tell myself boring's good.
Yeah, boring
Boring's
is typically
good.
good. Yeah, with life too, right? Like the more boring, the more mundane the day to day is. Typically, the better, the healthier, the better you like. Wake up, go to the gym, do the cold plunge, do the
Mhm.
sauna, go to work, blah 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 blah. Right? Like that typically is the life that you want to seek. Is the more mundane one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in conclusion, just a couple more questions. I always like to ask at the end of every podcast interview because I'm personally interested, and I think a lot of other people are too. Talk to me about like work-life balance. You're married. Do you have kids?
Not yet. No.
Okay, so no kids yet, but you're married, right?
Hmm.
Work-life balance. You've got a lot of stuff that you do, a lot of stuff you're working on. What does that look like for you?
Man, not a whole lot of work-life balance. I'll admit it. I'm just talking with your wife a couple minutes or before this. It's I wake up at 5 a.m., go to the gym, and I've really had to time block out my days because I mean in real estate you have so much stuff flying in every direction. You got a deal over here or this over there, and you can't get anything done. So because I don't have that good of a work-life balance, like I work Saturdays and Sundays, I've tried to time block my week so I could have that Saturday and Sunday.
Mm.
So it's tough for me to really like because I figured I'm gonna have kids when like in a year and a half, like when those kids come, like I'm gonna be screwed. Like I can't like wake up at 5 and stay or do whatever, and I definitely can't go to the office on Saturdays and Sundays. So I'm just using this time now to really structure it so I could create more time. But just a lot of gym, a lot of work, a
Yeah.
lot of deals. Yeah.
And then how does she like what does she do, I guess? What does her day-to-day look like and how does she feel and how does it all play out in the real world of you being an entrepreneur and going a million miles an hour?
Yeah, so she's my business partner, so she gets it. Like we're pretty much working just right alongside each other. We're a little bit too lean right now where we need to hire on some people to take off some of that load. So for the time being, we're burning the candle from both ends, literally.
Yeah.
Like we got a huge raise for that Arcadia project coming up, and we just broke ground on 16 homes in Mesa on top of our already, functioning acquisition and flip business and real estate portfolio. So we're we're swimming right now, but we need to bring on some staff to help with
Yeah.
that load.
Has it always been that way? Like when you guys met, did you guys immediately start like working together or was that a slower progression?
No, we were business partners first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Very
Oddly
cool.
enough, yeah,
Yeah.
she was the real freaking real estate savage, and I learned everything through her.
Wow.
Literally, she cut my learning curve from probably 3 years to like 9 months
It's awesome.
by just working
Yeah.
working together.
And do you like that symbiotic relationship? Like
Oh
for
yeah.
me, I love it, right? She's my creative director. And she does like everything social media that you see. And a lot more, like a million other things. And I can't imagine it any other way. I can't imagine like I actually told her when we first got together, I said, look, I don't want to wake up in the morning and go left and you go right. And then we come home at the end of the day and like fill each other in on our day, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I just don't think that's the kind of relationship I really want? So like what's your take on that?
I'm in the same exact boat. I would not have it any other way because like I need my partner to understand like my passion and my drive and get what because I like yes, we talk about other stuff, but you come home on Tuesday, you go down to Tacos Crujiente and crush a couple margaritas. Like we're talking about like different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And it just helps you progress a lot quicker. But yeah, I couldn't say because I've done
Yeah.
it both ways. I've had girlfriends who, just didn't get it, right?
Same. Yeah.
And you find something new at work and you're so excited to go back home and tell them about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool." I'm
Right.
like, "No, you're not getting it. Like it is cool."
This is life changing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like you got to wrap your brain around it. I'm the same way, dude. I talk to some people that they can't imagine doing it the way that we do it, and I can't relate, because I just I don't get that.
Yeah, we're not normal people. So
No,
we need not normal wives
yeah,
to be there with us.
you definitely do. Yeah, it's hard to find though, right? Like I feel like finding that, like, I feel like we're blessed in that way, right?
Mhm.
Like, we definitely, like, I'm super grateful. I know that we're lucky, right? I think to have found that. I think a lot of people are unable to find that.
Yeah,
It's really
not
tough.
it's rare. It's rare because you know, it's just not a like yeah, I have some friends who do that, but it's not the same level as like what I have and what you have. But I just chalk it down to being fortunate, you
Yeah,
know.
for sure. Yeah. Hey, I'll take it, right?
Mhm.
I'm not going to complain about it. All right. Well, in conclusion here, I always like to ask as well, what do you think about the, nobody's got the crystal ball. I always like to preface with that. Everybody I talk to is kind of in the same boat, but definitely nobody can predict the future. So, what are your thoughts on the market, and what do you think? I mean, where are we going to be mid 2023, late 2023, and then even going into 2024 and beyond, in your opinion?
I personally think we're going to see some more pain. I think that we're going to hold, or the Fed's at least going to hold rates high for probably another 9, 10, 12 months, maybe. Um, I, I, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of pain. I would say be patient. If you're going to buy something, I would be careful. Make sure you can rent it out if you cannot sell it.
Mm.
But I think we have at least another 10% in us.
Yeah, for sure. And then do you think eventually will rates ever come back down to
I think so.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're not going to be in the threes, but fundamentally, Arizona, with the amount of people moving here, we're still significantly undersupplied.
Mhm,
And with the builders not pulling new permits because where the rates are today, it's gonna further exacerbate that supply issue.
mhm.
So I think long term macro housing, it's positive. It's just a short term pain that we're gonna have to get through.
I agree with you, 1,000,000%. Do you think that Arizona and places like Arizona are the anomaly? Like, do you think, because I think there's other parts of the country that they're going to be in pain probably a lot longer and more severe?
We're a notorious boom bust. It's weird because Florida is a boom bust, but they had so many people moving there that they were kind of insulated from the bust.
Hmm.
But Arizona, Nevada, parts of California typically go first, and then the Midwest and everything else kind of trails behind.
Hmm.
But Arizona's just different because yeah, it's boom bust, but we have so much migration.
Mm,
So much migration. I mean,
unbelievable.
we're always top five in the United States, and we have so much industry coming to Arizona right
Hmm.
now that our economy is so much more diversified than great financial crisis.
Hmm.
So I think Arizona has some legs on it. It's
Yeah.
just, be patient, make sure you're buying the right stuff in the right spots, and just don't put too much leverage on stuff right now
Hmm.
because I am seeing rental prices going down. If you're maxing out your leverage and you're underwriting to $2,000 a month, but you're really leasing up at 1,800, that could cause some pain.
Hmm.
So just be conscious of the amount of leverage you're using and just get a good basis
Hmm.
in the right spots.
Do you think they overbuilt rentals,
I think it's
like
something that we should.
apartment buildings and stuff too?
Yeah, apartments are starting to become overbuilt. I mean, we're pulling more permits than we were back in '06.
Yeah.
Housing's different. I think probably about 10 years we should keep an eye on single family housing. I think we still have a long ways to go from having too much rental supply
Mm.
on the SFR side. But, I would just be conscious of buying in those outskirt
Yeah.
areas, like your Surprises and Buckeyes, and go more infill because homeowners can't go into Arcadia typically and buy 20 acres and dump, 300 new homes in Arcadia. So
Mm.
go into supply constrained areas that's insulated from new construction. And that'll probably be a good start.
That's a really good pointer, I think, for new people because at the end of the day, you can't make more land.
Can't make more land.
So when you're in the center of the city and you're in a place like Scottsdale or Phoenix, even downtown, or yeah, Arcadia, the OG parts of the East Valley, like not super far out Gilbert, but like actual like downtown Gilbert
Mhm.
type thing, like those are great areas.
Oh yeah, I love my Scottsdales. The cap rates aren't as high, but obviously, kind of like I was going back to risk adjusted returns.
Mhm.
It's not high because there's less risk.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, you almost can't lose. I mean,
Almost can't lose.
if you buy it right, and you hold on to it for a long enough period of time, I mean, there's going to be demand from every angle.
Correct.
You know, you're going to have a tenant. You're always going to have a buyer. You know, I mean, there's so many ways you can get out of that deal if you had to get out of that deal.
Correct.
Right. I love that. Well, Jared, I really appreciate you being on the show, man. Where can people find you? They want to reach out to you, do a deal with you, learn from you, what have you.
Find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Jared_Vidales, I believe. Let me check.
Perfect. Yeah.
I've been a huge Twitter guy. I freaking love this platform.
Did you get on Twitter then? I guess we'll keep the interview going for a second because my Twitter is absolutely garbage right now. Like, did you get on Twitter after Elon bought it, or were you a Twitter guy prior to that?
No, I love the Elon drama, so I jumped on to see what everybody was fighting about, and it's just so crazy because you could literally talk to, I don't know, freaking the CEO of Arbor Capital if you wanted to, and they respond. You could talk to literally anybody you want, and like there's so many good operators on Twitter that it's like a live pulse on what's happening in specific asset classes, whatever you're following. And typically what I see is 2 months later, it comes out in the Wall Street Journal. So like this is a live feed of on the ground, like real estate intel.
Okay. 3 Twitter accounts that I should follow right now.
Probably Sean Sweeney.
Okay. Feel free to look him up.
I like Strip Mall Guy.
Sean Sweeney, Strip Mall Guy.
Strip Mall Guy is pretty good. And then I like Lance Lambert. He's a housing economist.
Okay.
He's pretty good too.
Lance Lambert.
I stand corrected. My Twitter handle is Jared Vidales. No underscore.
Jared Vidales. Okay. Jared, I really appreciate you being on the show, man. We'll definitely have to do more and definitely have to do some deals and collaborate more in the future.
Dude, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
Really appreciate it. Hey, if you're still watching the show, greatly appreciate you staying all the way to the very end. If you're listening, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a 5-star review. And if you're watching, it would mean the world if you would subscribe, if you have not already, to both of our YouTube channels, like the video, and comment down below. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.